My grandfather died in our apple cellar 10 years ago, and every year since, on the first morning of harvest, somebody knocks 3 times on that door. The door's been locked since the day we buried him. We've got the only key, and every single year, right around dawn, 3 knocks, evenly spaced, slow knuckles on old wood, exactly the way he used to knock when his arms were too full of apples to reach the latch himself. I'm going to tell you what happened the year I finally stood at that door and knocked back. This is Red State Horror. Every Thursday, a story from somewhere in the South, the kind that gets told quietly at the kitchen table after the kids have gone to bed. Before we start, do one thing for me. Turn your phone face down. Let the room get a little darker than it already is. This one's got a rhythm to it, and I want you to hear all 3 knocks. My grandfather's name was Cyrus Whitfield, and our family has been growing apples in the same hollow below the Blue Ridge for 4 generations. Whitfield Orchard isn't big. Maybe 60 acres of trees running up a slope toward the mountains, a farmhouse, a barn, and a stone cellar dug into the hillside where we've always stored the harvest and run the cider press. That cellar door is heavy, oak, iron-strapped, older than anybody living remembers building it. And it's got one strange feature that every kid in our family learns early. The latch only works from the outside. You can lock somebody in, but you can't let yourself out. My grandfather always said it was built that way on purpose, generations back, so nobody working alone down there in the dark could wander off and leave the door swinging open for raccoons and rot. Whatever the reason, it meant one rule, unbroken for as long as anybody could remember. Nobody worked that cellar alone. Somebody stayed topside. Always. Cyrus loved that orchard the way some men love a person. He'd walk the rows before sunup with coffee going cold in his hand, checking each tree like it might have something to tell him. During harvest, he ran the cider press himself every single year, hauling basket after basket of apples down into that cellar, and when his arms were too full to work the latch, he'd knock. 3 times, slow. And whoever was on harvest duty topside, one of his kids, one of his grandkids, whoever'd drawn the short straw that morning, would come pull the door open for him. 3 knocks meant, let me out. Everybody in the family knew that rhythm the way you know your own name. Knock, knock, knock. Even, patient. Never rushed, no matter how full his arms were. He used to say the orchard didn't belong to us so much as we belonged to it, for as long as we were willing to show up and work it right. I was 14 when he died, and I can still hear him saying that, standing at the top of the cellar stairs with the morning light coming in gold behind him. The harvest he died in. The harvest 10 years ago started like every harvest before it. Cyrus was 73 that year, still strong, still the first one up. On the first morning of picking season, he went down into the cellar alone to get the press set up before the rest of us finished breakfast, which wasn't like him, breaking his own rule, but my grandmother said later he'd been in a hurry, excited, wanting everything ready before the grandkids came out to help. Nobody was posted topside. Nobody heard 3 knocks that morning, because there was nobody there to hear them. My uncle found him almost 2 hours later, when somebody finally went down to check why the press wasn't running. Heart attack, the doctor said. Fast, they told us. He probably didn't suffer long. Baskets of apples were scattered around him like he'd been reaching for something when it happened. We buried him 3 days later, at the edge of the orchard, under a tree he'd planted the year my mother was born. The cellar stayed locked after that, partly grief. Nobody could stand to go down there for a long time. Partly practical. My uncle took over running things, and he set up a smaller press in the barn instead, closer to the house, easier on everybody. The old cellar just sat there, sealed, apples and equipment still inside from that morning, exactly as they'd been left. We didn't open it again for a full year. First year, the knocking started. The next harvest came around, almost exactly a year later, and the whole family gathered at the orchard the way we always had, because some things you keep doing even when they hurt, maybe especially then. Nobody said much about the cellar. It was just there, locked, at the edge of everything, the way a scar is just there. On the first morning of picking, my cousin Danny was up early, walking the near rows, when he heard it. 3 knocks, slow, even, coming from the cellar door. He told us later he didn't even think twice at first. The rhythm was so familiar, so exactly right, that some old part of his brain just processed it as ordinary. Grandpa's knocking, somebody go let him out. It took a few full seconds for the wrongness of that thought to catch up to him. He came running to the house, white as a bedsheet, saying somebody was locked in the cellar. My uncle went down with the key, certain that some kid had wandered in there and gotten stuck, or that raccoons had gotten in and were banging around. He unlocked the door, swung it open. Empty, dust undisturbed on the stairs going down. The old baskets sitting exactly where they'd been left a year before. Nothing and no one. We told ourselves it was the wind, or an old door settling on its hinges. Or grief playing tricks on a 14-year-old boy's ears on the anniversary of losing his grandfather. We wanted an explanation that let us keep breathing normally. It happened again the next year. And the year after that. Always the first morning of harvest. Always 3 knocks. Evenly spaced. Patient. Exactly like a man whose arms were too full to reach the latch himself. Let me pause here for a second. If you've been listening to this channel since the early days, thank you. Genuinely, I mean that. These stories take a while to put together. And knowing people are actually sitting with them, in the dark, at the end of a long day, is the reason I keep doing this every Thursday. If you're new, welcome. I'm glad this is the one that found you. If this story is working on you already, go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss next week's, and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight. Alright, back to the orchard. For years we managed to keep telling ourselves versions of the wind story. It got harder every year. The wind story especially fell apart this season. We had a drought so bad there was no harvest at all. Barely any fruit worth picking. The whole family agreed to skip the season entirely and let the trees rest. Nobody set foot on that property for the first morning of what would have been picking season. My uncle checked, later, out of a feeling he couldn't quite explain, driving out there alone. 3 knocks. He heard them from the driveway standing by his truck, on a morning when there was no harvest happening, no crew gathered, no reason for anyone or anything to be marking that particular day at all, except that it was, on the calendar, the day the harvest would have started. That was the year my uncle stopped calling it the wind. We had a new padlock installed after that. Heavier, modern, nothing an old latch or a settling door could account for. We emptied the cellar one winter, hauled out every basket, every piece of the old press, cleaned it down to bare stone, and locked it up, truly empty. The knocking didn't care. It came back that next harvest, same as always, on an empty cellar with a brand new lock, 3 knocks against a door with nothing behind it that any of us could explain. My grandmother, before she passed, told me she stopped being afraid of it somewhere around year 4. That's not something trying to get out and hurt anybody, she said. That's your grandfather, doing the only part of the job he's still got left to do. He's letting us know he's ready to work. We're the ones who stopped answering. The morning someone finally opened the door. I turned 26 the year I decided I needed to be the one standing at that door when it happened. I'd heard the story my whole life, secondhand, filtered through cousins and aunts and my grandmother's calm certainty. I wanted to hear it myself. I wanted, if I'm honest, to open that door the instant the knocking started and see, once and for all, what was or wasn't on the other side. I told my uncle what I was planning. He didn't try to talk me out of it. He just handed me the key and told me to go before first light, so I wouldn't miss it. I got to the orchard while it was still dark, that particular hush before dawn, where even the birds haven't started yet. I walked down to the cellar door, and I stood there with the key already in the lock, ready to turn it the second I heard anything. The waiting was its own kind of terrible. Every creak of a branch, every rustle in the grass, I thought, there, that's it. It wasn't. The sky started going gray at the edges. Somewhere behind me, up toward the house, I heard a rooster start in. And then, close enough that I felt it as much as heard it. 3 knocks against the other side of that door. Slow, even, patient, the way a man knocks when his hands are too full to reach the latch himself. I turned the key and pulled the door open so fast I nearly fell backward down the stairs. For just a second. I want to be careful how I describe this, because I've turned it over in my mind 100 times since, and I still can't make it into something tidier than it was. For just a second, the cellar wasn't the empty, swept-out stone room I knew it to be. There was lantern light down there. Warm, low, the kind that comes off an oil lamp. Not electric. I could see, or thought I could see, the old press standing where it used to stand. Baskets stacked along the wall, apples spilling gold and red out of one that had tipped over. And at the bottom of the stairs, just at the edge of that lantern light, I thought I saw the shape of a man, broad-shouldered, standing the way he always used to stand, arms bent like they were carrying something heavy. It lasted less than a second. Then it was just the cellar. Bare stone, cold morning air, empty shelves, the smell of nothing but dust and old wood. Except for one thing, sitting on the bottom step right where I could see it clearly in the growing daylight, was a basket, full of apples. Freshly picked, dew still beaded on the skins, the way they look when they've come off the tree within the hour. Nobody had been in that orchard picking that morning. I was the only person there. I checked, later, every angle I could think of. No ladder left against a tree, no basket missing from the barn, no explanation that held together under any kind of scrutiny. Just a basket of apples, sitting on the step of a cellar that had been locked, empty and undisturbed for 10 years, set there by somebody whose hands apparently were finally free. I told my family what I saw. Nobody argued with me. My uncle just nodded, slow, like a man hearing a piece of news he'd been waiting a long time for somebody else to confirm. We don't lock the cellar on harvest mornings anymore. Every year now, before first light, somebody in the family walks down and leaves the door unlatched. Not open, just unlatched, the way you'd leave a door for somebody you expected home. We don't go inside. We just leave it ready, and every year by the time the sun's fully up, there's a basket of apples sitting on the bottom step. Fresh picked. Nobody's ever caught the moment it happens. We've tried, a few times, watching from a distance, and the basket's just there when we look again, the way it was the very first time. I don't know if my grandfather's still down there in some way none of us understand, still doing the one job he never got to finish. I don't know if it's something else entirely, wearing the shape of a habit because habits are what get remembered longest. What I know is that for 10 years, 3 knocks came from a locked door, right on schedule, patient as ever. And the year we finally answered, the door gave something back. Some jobs I think don't end, just because the man doing them does. If you made it all the way to the end of this one, drop Cellar in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know you were here for it. If this story found you at the right moment tonight, hit subscribe so you don't miss next Thursday. We're heading to a horse farm in the Kentucky Bluegrass, where a tack room light has been turning on at the exact hour a man died, every single evening for longer than anyone left can explain. This is Red State Horror. I'll see you next Thursday. Listen in the dark.